All right, so Bitcoin, huh? Seems like everyone's been talking about it, especially with how institutional investors are getting involved now.
Yeah, you're right. It's been crazy to see.
BlackRock, Fidelity, even pension funds. It's been wild to watch. And of course, we're going to deep dive into it all today.
Absolutely.
Specifically, looking into what the sources say about how Bitcoin has been doing this year.
Yeah.
We hit a new all-time high this month and all.
Right.
But now it's sort of, dipping down a bit as we close out the year.
Yeah, it is down a bit.
So it'll be fascinating to look into all of that.
Absolutely.
So we've got a ton of great sources ready to break down, how these big institutions getting involved is affecting the price of Bitcoin.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think what's really interesting to me is that Bitcoin, is down a bit as we end the year.
Right.
But it's still up significantly since January 1st.
It's been a crazy year.
It really has.
A lot to dig into.
Yeah, so let's just jump into it.
Yeah, let's get into it.
One thing that really stood out to me was all the excitement around the launch of those spot Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs.
Right.
I mean, it felt like, crypto was finally, hitting the mainstream.
Totally.
Can you kind of remind me exactly how those work and why they were such a big deal?
Yeah, so basically they let investors buy into Bitcoin and Ethereum without actually owning the coins themselves.
Oh, sure.
So it's kind of like instead of buying a house, you buy shares in a company that owns like a ton of houses.
Oh, okay, I see.
So it's just a way easier way for people to get exposure,
Makes sense.
especially for those big institutional investors you were talking about earlier.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because those guys, they probably don't want to deal with the whole, buying and storing Bitcoin themselves.
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
way less hassle.
Yeah, so, okay, so you've got these ETFs making it easier than ever to invest in Bitcoin.
Right.
And you've got all these like huge players jumping into the market.
Yeah.
Everyone's predicting, Bitcoin's going to hit like six figures. But then what happened? Like, why are we closing out the year? And, it's still below that all-time high we saw earlier this month.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Well, one thing to remember is that institutional investors, they might not be thinking as long-term as like, the average crypto enthusiast.
Okay.
They might be more focused on like short-term gains,
I see.
riding those price swings.
Gotcha.
Remember that JP Morgan report you sent over?
Yeah, yeah.
They actually predicted that there would be a sell-off around like $50,000.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that, institutions would be the ones kind of leading that sell-off.
Huh. So are they basically just like cashing out after, making a quick buck?
It's possible, yeah. They might be taking profits and, repositioning themselves for the next move.
Okay, that makes sense.
And another thing to keep in mind is that, just like any asset, Bitcoin goes through cycles.
Oh, right. Yeah.
There are going to be periods of like crazy growth,
All right.
and then there are going to be corrections.
So this dip we're seeing now could just be like, part of that natural cycle.
Exactly. And if you look back at like the historical price data for Bitcoin,
Yeah.
you actually see this kind of pattern repeating itself.
Uh-huh.
Big surges followed by pullbacks.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of like history rhyming, as they say.
So basically this dip that everyone's freaking out about, maybe it's not that big a deal.
Right. It's all about perspective.
Yeah.
And the bigger picture here is that, we're seeing a real shift in how people are thinking about Bitcoin.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not just this like, fringe asset anymore.
Right.
Serious money is coming in.
Exactly.
And I think that raises some interesting questions.
Okay.
Well, like, what does this mean for Bitcoin's stability in the long term?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question.
Could all this institutional money actually make it less volatile?
Right. Because, it used to be like the Wild West out there.
Exactly. Yeah, it was super unpredictable.
But now with these big institutions involved.
Yeah, could it become like more predictable? Or could it actually introduce like a whole new set of risks,
Oh, that's true. Yeah. It's kind of like we're at this weird crossroads.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it.
Where on one hand, you've got this old narrative of Bitcoin as this like, wild, unpredictable asset.
Right.
But then there's this new narrative emerging of it being like a legitimate store of value, even like a potential hedge against traditional markets.
Exactly.
And so I guess the big question is, which narrative is going to win out?
Right.
Like as we head into 2025, is it going to be, the institutions that kind of tame the Wild West of crypto?
Right. Or will Bitcoin kind of stay true to its roots?
Right. Stay rebellious and disruptive.
Exactly. I think that's the question that we should all be thinking about.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see what happens.
Me too.
This is going to be interesting.
Yeah, really is. All right, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to The Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me. See you later.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.